Hello, everybody. Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is Election Edge Monday's edition. 6 o'clock back east, 3 o'clock here on the West Coast. We are live. We're streaming on X at Patriot TV Network. We're on YouTube, Rumble, Roku. You can find us everywhere. Happy to have you with us. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about after just, the crazy week that happened last week, followed by the media just fawning. I mean, it just continues over the weekend. All the Sunday talk show hosts glorified everything Harris is doing, vilified Trump on everything. It doesn't matter what surrogate you send out, whether it's J.D. Vance. Of course, they don't send anybody, no candidates. You never see Harris anymore. Day 36. Jason Bermas, welcome back. Election Edge Monday. We always have a lot to talk about, my friend.
Yes, we do. And, we talked last Monday, which was before the RFK announcement and the joint rally. So obviously a lot going on just in that spectrum. And really, Mark, I was kind of disheartened by the fact there was no visible sway in the media's coverage of what that meant via the polls, especially because you and I both know that in the states that he was on the ballot, you could see a real 5 to 10% impact in that voting, yet you didn't see that reflection anywhere in the national polls, in my opinion.
Well, you didn't, and we're going to start calling this the Gaslight Election because, folks, the Democratic Party is literally trying to run out the clock on Vice President Harris. Now, generally, when you try to run out the clock, you should be ahead. And I know why these national polls are showing anywhere from 1.5 to 3 points ahead. When you factor in the fact that Kennedy made the endorsement last Friday. And Jason, as we talked last Monday, I really believe the reason his polling numbers deteriorated from 10 down to 5 was because the double haters, once Biden was off the ticket, the ones that were going to vote Democrat, half of them of Kennedy people, Democrat, half Republican, I think they had already decided to go for Harris. So I believe the 5 to 6% remaining support Kennedy had in these swing states, I think 2/3 to 3/4 of that goes to Donald Trump. And we really haven't seen any polling numbers come out since that period of time. But make no mistake, it's going to have a material impact on the election. Not only that, but Jason, isn't this the party of a democracy who wants everybody to vote, and yet they do not want any of these third-party candidates, a la Jill Stein, Green Party, Cornell West, this guy Oliver from, what's his party? The Libertarian Party, okay? Collectively, those three candidates right there, Oliver, Stein, and Cornell West, they're going to get 2.5% of the vote. Let's just call it 2 for argument's sake. And Jason, what that means is there's about 98% of the vote outstanding. Well, I've said all along, if Donald Trump can get 48 to 48.5%, he will win this election. What do you think about these Democrats? The Democracy Party of all things, literally gaslighting the American public. 36 days now, Kamala Harris, no interviews, no nothing. I mean, if this isn't the basement strategy in full view, I don't know what is.
Well, the last part that you just mentioned there was also highlighted by RFK Jr., right? He said, look, this woman has not engaged the press whatsoever after being announced as the presumptive nominee after getting none of the votes. I mean, he said that basically his uncle and father would be rolling in their grave, and this is not a reflection of the Democratic Party that he grew up with. So, look, I think that when you're talking politics, obviously this game has been played with third parties for a very long time now, but this has been much more egregious because, again, RFK Jr. was a viable Democratic candidate that deserved his day on the debate stage and did not get that. And then when you talk about the court of public opinion, yes, he was very smart and savvy to go on just about every podcast you could imagine, do the town hall things, actually campaign, something, again, that is the complete opposite of what Kamala Harris has done. But he mentioned, he goes, listen, when Ross Perot ran, he goes, by this time, I think there was 35 mainstream sit-down interviews with him of substance. And there had been maybe, I think, 2 that RFK Jr. had done, and none of them were long form at all. So, him calling out what the media has become, him calling out what the party has become, a party that does not want to debate, does not want to engage even with the press that is obviously much more sympathetic and now enthusiastic about this Kamala Harris campaign. But, the other thing that you talked about in Trump having to get 48% of the vote, people aren't focusing on the fact that he's going to be on the ballot in a lot of the states. He's going to be on the ballots on the states that he believes are so red, there's no chance for Kamala Harris, and so blue that there is no chance for Donald Trump. That's 20 plus states. And I haven't seen anybody make this comment. I'm wondering what your thoughts on this possibility are. He said, there is still the distinct possibility of a runoff election if both of these candidates get 269 electoral votes and are unable to pierce 270. Now, I don't know if that's in the realm of possibility, but it certainly does make things, extremely interesting as a sidebar. But for all intents and purposes, it appears like this is now going to be a somewhat joint campaign. And there are rumors and talks of not only RFK Jr. being in this administration, but maybe being in a position like Attorney General or even head of the CIA.
Yeah, I've heard some of those possibilities of senior level positions within the Trump administration, Jason, and it's not going to shock me at all. I mean, at the end of the day, Trump's a bean counter, and come election night, I mean, he's going to have 70 some odd days between now and when the votes are officially tallied to see what Kennedy does. And you know how Trump is. He likes people that are pro-Trump. So if Kennedy's out there on the stump or if he's doing interviews, point of record, we're trying to get him to come on Election Edge. So if he's out there doing all the shows and he's stumping for Trump and he's talking about the policies they agree on and all the lawfare that, think about this, Jason, the lawfare that Trump experienced, who else can compare to it but RFK Jr.? The lawfare the Democratic Party did on that man to keep him off Democratic ballots and then switching now to try to keep him off or on certain ballots or off others. I mean, it's crazy. And when I watched that speech that he gave on Friday, now I had the benefit of being able to go on a couple networks and look at it, but some of our infamous cable networks refused to carry it. Or in CNN's case, they're basically a laughing stock now in the media world. They carried part of it up until the time when Kennedy started criticizing mainstream media networks. Folks, their viewership has gotten so low, it barely registers anymore. So Kennedy was spot on. But did the major networks cover it? No, they did not. You go search for it, you can find it, but it was barely a blip on the evening news. Yes, they did carry it, but it didn't get the type of coverage you would expect. So what does that mean on a go-forward basis? I think your calculation and my calculation is correct. I think Kennedy is going to have an effect on this race. The Democratic pollsters who are in the know it's going to have an effect. But the pom-pom boys and the cheerleaders and all the Harris sycophants out there who are nonstop praise for her, regardless of the fact 36 days, no positions, they're not going to do anything to help Trump. I mean, just like you pointed out when we talked last Monday, you go look up the Trump assassination attempt, Jason. I believe Google's doing everything they can, Google, Facebook, to scrub it from their files. So no, you're not going to get any help at all on the Republican side from the legacy mainstream media or even the current media. So I think it's going to be problematic. Now, I do want to comment about Stein and West and these people. The Democrats are doing everything they can to keep these other candidates not on the ballot. And I'll give you an example. It's a really bizarre thing I was coming across when I was researching, doing some show prep today. Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State in the state of Georgia. Well, an appeals court has ruled that Cornell West, Jill Stein, and Oliver, a third-party candidate, are not going to be on the ballot. But then the judge said, based on Georgia law, I can only render an opinion. The final decision is up to Raffensperger. Well, they've previously been on the ballot. So I'm sitting here thinking, why would Raffensperger take them off the ballot? Isn't, even though he's a Republican, he gained a lot of notoriety in the 2020 election. We're not going to relitigate that. But Raffensperger should have them on the ballot, as should every state in which they qualified. Jason, I think it's just purely mathematics. The Democrats are worried that the far left wing of their base will not support Harris. And that's sort of a head scratcher to me, because she is to the left of Bernie Sanders on policies, despite that speech she gave last Thursday night.
Well, I think that number one, when you're on the left and you have even the slightest realization that this was far from any type of quote unquote democratic process, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is just too far from you. Like, let's say the vaccination issue alone kind of turns you off, right? Well, now you got two different candidates that might be a turn on. Look, Jill Stein, I at least respect her anti-war stance, and I expect those that are extremely anti-war and don't want to vote for the Republican side, and certainly don't want Kamala Harris and want a protest vote, they'll go with Jill Stein, and I can totally understand that. That also being said, obviously it is the Green Party. The climate change agenda is also very much embedded in that. I think Cornell West offers a little bit more of the same, but I would say that Cornell West also gravitates even more to identity politics than Jill Stein does. Jill Stein, for all of her faults, has never really played into the idea that she's an oppressed woman, right? She's an empowered woman. I would argue, that is kind of like the reality of a real empowered woman that's been doing the same thing and actually backed up her talk with the walk all these years. That being said, I think the realization is that could be a good 5 to even 15% in some states that just don't want to vote Democrat down the line, that actually do believe in these policies. Because look, even if Kamala Harris is enacting policies that may align with your worldview, I would argue that those that are kind of embedded in that movement and paying attention, they know that she is just a vapid placeholder, and any of the policies she puts forward are allowed to be put forward by some other part of the establishment. So I expect, that to be the voting base for those two candidates. And I actually do, again, 5% on the low end, maybe even 15% on the high end in some areas if they get on the ballot. That's problematic for Kamala Harris.
Oh, for sure it's problematic. And let me give you two other examples here. Cornell West did not get on the ballot in Pennsylvania, but he is on the ballot in Michigan. Now, they're appealing that Pennsylvania one. That's another crazy thing. In Pennsylvania, they have 19 electoral votes, and you supposedly had to do something with those 19 electors. But the major party candidates didn't have to do it. So West is saying, well, wait a minute, if they don't have to do it, why do I have to do it? So he brings up a good point. Whether he'll get on that Pennsylvania ballot, I don't know. Jill Stein's going to be on in Wisconsin. Guess what, Jason? In the 2016 election, to bring up your point, she got more votes than the margin Trump won by. And Wisconsin's always a plus or minus 0.5% or less state. So, boy, again, I think what this shows you is those two states, particularly Michigan and Wisconsin, razor thin. And then you talk about Michigan, the anti-Israel vote, where Harris, when she gave her speech, on Thursday night, really tried to have it both ways. And real quick question before we go to break, Jason, did you hear the same thing I heard last Thursday night? I almost felt like I was listening to a moderate Republican give that Democratic acceptance speech, hitting on 80% of the issues that centrist, quote, Mitt Romney, John McCain type Republicans would be advocating.
You call them centrists. I call them neocons. I think that a lot of it was kind of enveloped in language. I also watched that speech, and let's be honest, it took 2 minutes of cackling, a story about her mother that was halfway Johnny nonsense, and really an attack on Trump before we were 20 minutes deep, and really any policy was mentioned. But again, the policy has gone so far off the rails, and you have to ride the coattails of other people from that convention, right? When you're talking about Bill Clinton, for instance, what did he hone in other than attacks on Trump? The border issue. And so did the Barack star. They honed in the border issue, and they said that Donald Trump was the one stopping the border from being secured just so he could get in office. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. And bottom line is, there doesn't need to be a deal or an agreement on the border. What you need to do is start empowering mass emigration out of here. In other words, no more catch and release, no more everybody is a migrant that's seeking asylum, etc., and any type of economic incentives, and you'll see things change like that. You don't have to write a policy. The policy is the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the state and federal laws on the book. It doesn't come more clear-cut.
Build the wall, catch and deport. All right, we're past our break. We're going to take a 90-second break. We'll be back. And when we come back, we're going to show you a little parody of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz sort of cackling about the issues.
Former National Security Advisor Lieutenant General Michael Flynn pleaded guilty today to lying to the FBI.
He was one of the most respected generals in the military.
Every American needs this historical DVD keepsake. Flynn delivered the truth, whatever the cost. Hand signed by General Michael Flynn. Order now at the Patriot TV store. Use promo code PTV at checkout to get special savings. The Patriot TV store, a secure, hassle-free shopping experience.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
The world is about to shift. Banks are going cashless globally with the emergence of central bank digital currency, which will bring with it programmable money and the ability to turn on or off your purchasing power based on your digital social profile. It's like the equivalent of spyware in your bank account. You need to get out of the system with the world's safest and most precious assets, silver and gold. Call Kirk Elliott Precious Metals at 720-605-3900. That's 720-605-3900.
And we're back. Hey, folks, Dr. Kirk Elliott, great sponsor at Patriot TV, 720-605-3900. Great company. Gold's at record high prices right now. Pick up the phone and call Dr. Kirk Elliott. He's a great friend of the show, great friend of Patriot TV. Okay, Jason, we promised our viewers a little parody of Comrade Kamala and the leftist Governor Tim Walz. Madam Producer, if you can key it up. Now, folks, this is parody, a little humor in Election Edge on Monday. Roll the tape.
Hi, this is Tim.
It's Kamala Harris. Good morning, Governor.
Good morning, Madam Vice President.
Listen, you weren't my first choice. To be honest, you weren't even in my top 10. But no one else wants to run as my VP because they all know I'm going to lose. You are the only one who is willing to be my running mate.
Yeah, I mean, this is basically career suicide. But I did some dumb shit a few years back, and now I'm totally controlled by the deep state. And so they told me either I become your running mate or I get Epstein in a New York prison.
Now, the fact that we're both radical communists is a slight problem, but I got some instructions from Big Daddy Barack. Basically, we're going to pretend that you're a normal American white guy. There's a bunch of things you did that we got to run away from here. You passed a law requiring tampons in the boys' bathroom in schools. You basically cheered on the George Floyd rioters who burned down your cities. You implemented a snitch hotline during COVID. And Tim, you signed a law that allows the state to take custody of children if their parents refuse to let them transition. I mean, what the f***, Tim? We got a lot of cleanup to do here. But listen, we already got the mainstream media gaslighting America into thinking that you're super normal.
This is America's dad, America's football coach, and the teacher that's cool enough without trying to be cool.
A lot of people have noticed this sort of down-to-earth, likable quality to him.
Very moderate in Congress.
A moderate Democrat, a centrist, but a more centrist.
Kind of a centrist Midwesterner in persona.
That's pretty funny because I'm weird as f***.
Americans are dumb, Tim. They'll believe anything we tell them.
They are so dumb, right?
They think I'm black. Okay, so here's the plan. In order to hide your own weirdness, we want you to accuse Trump and J.D. Vance of being weird. Just say it over and over again.
Weird, 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 weird. And then they start being weird. They're weird, 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 weird. Donald Trump's weirdness. Very weird, weird. It's just too weird. It's weird, weird. Okay, so how far left are we admitting to being here? Like, are we openly woke?
We have to stay woke. Like, everybody needs to be woke. And you can talk about if you're the wokest or woker, but just stay more woke than less woke. Yeah. No, we're flip-flopping on everything right now. We want to keep the voters confused. You know when your GPS suddenly starts rerouting inexplicably and you have no idea where you're going and you're afraid your GPS might just drive you off a cliff? We're exactly like that.
What do we say if reporters ask us about policy stuff?
Oh, we're not taking questions from reporters, Tim. We're not prepared for that. But if you do find yourself in a tricky spot with a reporter, just cackle.
Cackle.
Yeah, cackle.
You're considered the most liberal United States senator.
Somebody said that, and it actually was Mike Pence on the debate stage. But
Yeah. And is that a socialist or progressive perspective?
No. Like, what do you want to know?
Wow, that's horrifying.
Exactly. It's horrifying, but distracting. Okay, so Tim, tell me, your radical left political views, are those real?
Oh, no, of course not. No, honestly, I will have whatever political views you pay me to have.
I love it, Tim. You're like the white male version of me.
You're right. No one voted for me either. Hey, Kamala, let's see what can be unburdened by what has been.
All right, buddy. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.
Hey, you ever notice that Harris Waltz sounds like Harry Balls?
I had not noticed that. Thank you for that. Bye, Tim.
Jason, your first view of our little parody there?
Well, obviously had some golden moments, and let's go through some of them. First of all, I would say the most honestly disturbing moment was not the AI-driven audio, right, which is pretty spot on. Obviously, the lips didn't move in the same way. That's already here. Had they had the software, they could have made that happen too. But the cutaways to Kamala Harris talking about woke, and you see her full body language and how uncomfortable she is and how she's sitting there gyrating and talking about it over and over again without even being able to explain what it is. That doesn't show me a confident person with a political ideology. Instead, you could get to the end of that video where Tim Walz is talking about how he really doesn't have any kind of political ideology either. And it's whatever the donor class essentially wants them to do and say. And she says, well, that's great because you're just like a female or a male version of me. And that's what we got, right? That's the same reason that we have, the issue that we were talking about at the end there, where you said, hey, they're starting to sound like moderate Republicans. Yeah, because when you say these things out loud, when you cackle about woke 5 times in 15 seconds and literally say nothing, people are like, this person's a they're president? No. But again, we've been gaslit on such another level that they really believe, and when I say they, I do mean the predator class, the establishment, they believe they can install this woman. That's what I really think is happening right now, and they're easing us into it.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, when you just think back to the speech on Thursday night, and again, that video was parody, but when you listen to it, a lot of what's in that video is actually factually true. They are trying to hide their leftist communist views. I mean, her price controls thing was a beaut coming right out of the gate. They've kept them away from the media. Why do they do that? Who the hell wants to talk about the policies they really believe in? Nobody. So I got to believe that this is going to continue. And as long as they say, hey, we're in the lead in these polls, and we've got a debate coming up with Trump, which, oh, by the way, they tried to change the terms on that debate. And as of this viewing, they're still negotiating back and forth. You know, who the hell knows what Trump's going to do here? But I fully expect the debate's going to happen. But back to the bigger point, these people, when they gave the speech, when she gave her speech, you know, widely applauded by the media, of course, I'm listening to this, and if I didn't know it was Kamala Harris giving the speech, and it was just Jane Doe giving it, I would think, oh, that Jane Doe, she's sort of a moderate Republican, knowing damn good and well that the minute, folks, do not kid yourself here, if she were to be elected, then what you would likely see, probably a 50-50 Senate or a 51-49 slide edge to Republicans. You'd have a Democratic House. They would try all kind of crazy legislation that she advocated when she ran for president back in 2020 to the left of Bernie Sanders. Don't kid yourself. This is all an effort to gaslight the American people. Think back. Have you ever in any presidential election had a candidate go, what's now 36 days, likely to be 40 by the end of the week, without as much as a press conference or sitting down for an interview? Mainstream media, legacy media, current media, I haven't. And I think people are going to get ticked off about that. At a certain point in time, even though the left-wing media is cheering every move that she makes, every possible potential policy, other than her economic one, of course, that she sort of did off the cuff. She even caught Democratic senators by surprise when she matched Trump's no tax on tips piece. Who knows what else she's going to copy? And Jason, I think your point is this. She has no real fabric in what she really believes in, other than that tendency to lean so far left. That's who she really is. Now, to the degree, there's a lot to unpack there, but to the degree this election is about style, she's got a chance to win. If it's about substance and policy, I submit she does not.
Well, even substance and policy, let's talk about one of the things that was discussed. And I was trying to rack my brain on this one. Obviously, the framing of the original Trump tax cuts were benefiting him and his billionaire friends, right, Mark? And look, absolutely did. But it benefited the middle class greatly. So greatly, in fact, that in short order of this man being sworn in, my paycheck working at a bar went up. I mean, not super significantly, but I saw it in my paycheck. And I was like, yeah, I was not the exception. I was the rule. And anybody who is paying attention understands that tax break was only for 10 years and is close to sunsetting. Now, Trump has said he will extend that tax break. So where you are today, that's base level taxes. Without it, you're going to be paying more. Now, the talking point was that not only did they not talk about extending that, they said that Trump was going to come in and he was going to tax the middle class higher. I haven't seen no evidence of that. Then she in turn said that they had a tax cut plan that will affect 100 million Americans. And so I'm racking my brain right there, Mark. I'm thinking to myself, 100 million Americans, who could they possibly be talking about? And all I can really think of is that, unfortunately, we live in a country where 40+% of people, they're not living just paycheck to paycheck, Mark. They are on some type of government entitlement program, whether that is welfare, Medicare, Medicaid, and a dozen other programs. They're on some kind of dole. So I would expect the 100 million that are going to get this tax break are already the ones that aren't really paying taxes the vast majority of the time to begin with. Now, that doesn't mean that I like the structure that we have where a Google literally pays no taxes, but I would argue that structure is in place because that's a Trojan horse civilian system. That is literally a public-private partner in so many regards. Google narrative management, defense contracting, artificial intelligence. I could keep going on. So those people are always going to have the tax breaks, unfortunately, and unless we revamp the system. But the promise from Kamala Harris trying to play up to the middle class, she doesn't even mention the middle class when she talks about these tax breaks too. So much of it is semantics, my friend. And look, there is no substance to this campaign. These really are empty, vapid vessels that just want power. Can you imagine? Like this woman is the first woman president. I'm not into identity politics, my friend, but if this is what you put forward, I'd almost have more respect for a Hillary Clinton being the first woman president just on the body count alone. So
by far, not even a close second. I mean, she got beat, but I mean, she at least knew what the hell she was doing. I mean, don't get me started. All right,
I don't agree with any of her policy, right? But at the same time, somebody that had been around this hornet's nest, you could kind of see it. Sure, Kamala's been around the hornet's nest, but when you look at Hillary, you look at the rise of Bill and Hill from Arkansas on. Those are big-time political players. She's not even on that level.
No doubt, no doubt. All right, I'm going to close. I got to go to break, but one thing that caught my eye was someone was talking to Gavin Newsom, and Governor of California. He said, "Hey, I was told to say it was a competitive process." Anyhow, all right, we're at break time. No more cackling. See you in 90 seconds.
Don't let them win. Patriot TV is committed to delivering the truth. America's new network for patriots is growing fast, and we'd love you to join us as a member of Patriot TV. Your support makes it possible for us to continue to deliver unbiased reporting, thought-provoking discussions, and insights you won't find anywhere else. From in-depth interviews to behind-the-scenes footage, Patriot TV brings you closer to the voices shaping our nation's future. Whether it's political developments, cultural shifts, or global affairs, Patriot TV keeps you informed and empowered. As a member of Patriot TV, you'll get perks like personal invitations to exclusive Patriot TV events, where you can gather and network with like-minded Americans. We'll also host online events throughout the year with General Flynn, who's committed to host live Q&A webinars where callers like you can ask him questions and get real answers. Access to these events will be members only, so go to patriot.tv, click on Become a Member. It's fast and easy. We have a great membership option starting at just $9.99 a month, or save with our annual membership for only $99, or take advantage of the best value, the 2-year membership for just $159. Go to patriot.tv, click on Become a Member. It's fast and easy. Do your part to make sure the truth gets out to all patriots and help ensure future programming. Become a member today. Just go to patriot.tv, click on Become a Member, join today.
And we're back. Hey, folks, like she was telling you, go get on there, click Patriot Defenders, join the team. We need your help. We can bring you all this great content. We've got Q&As coming up with General Flynn. We're going to have a big retreat in Venice come February. Lots of great content at Patriot. But most of all, we need your help. We're a growing network, but boy, we've got competition, and those liberals want to they want to put all these conservative companies out of business. So we're fighting the good fight for your benefit. All right, Jason, maybe I missed something, but today was the 3rd anniversary of that disaster in Afghanistan. And lo and behold, right on cue, Donald Trump goes to Arlington National Cemetery to pay his respects. Kamala Harris is nowhere. And basically she says Joe Biden was courageous for doing the Afghan retreat. And I was in the room. I was the last voice he heard in the room. And I'm saying this was an absolute disaster. And yet you were the last person in the room. Jason, what do you even, like Jim Acosta, CNN says, oh, Trump's politicizing this. I mean, it's another thing to where the media is doing everything they can to pull this woman across the finish line. And to me, it was downright disgusting.
Well, let's go back to the fact that the media and even Joe Biden in those last couple of speeches, God love him, he got 45 minutes off at the convention. Didn't see that coming. I mean, it was a babbling, obviously very Adderall riddled speech, but he brought up again, he calls them suckers and losers, the old suckers and losers line. Now, despite the fact that Trump not only has denied this in public, but handled him in that debate and said, how ludicrous would it be for me to say suckers and losers about soldiers that have fallen as I'm at a memoriam to them. It's like over the top cartoon level. But again, it's what they want to ride with. And let me just say this, as far as Afghanistan goes, I don't think we should have been there in the first place. I couldn't wait to get out of there. But before the show, we were talking about an interview that I had conducted with former Congressman Louis Gohmert. And Louis and I actually discussed this in Afghanistan because, look, at the end of the day, we did want to get out of there, but not in the same fashion. And Louis was talking about the fact that Michael Pompeo had essentially stifled a plan for the Afghans to actually elect their leaders, okay, and get rid of the Taliban and what they considered extremism and move forward. But that, for some reason, was not on the table with even a guy like Pompeo. I think that is extremely problematic and another reason to leave him out of the next administration. And he said it like this. When he was talking to people on the ground there, he said, look, all you have to do is amend our Constitution. Let us do something more like you guys, and everything will be fine. He goes, well, we're the United States. We can't amend your Constitution. He goes, well, how much do you think our annual budget here is in Afghanistan? He's like, oh, I don't know. He's like, it's $12 billion. And he's like, how much of that is given to us through the United States? He's like, I don't know. He goes, $10 billion. He goes, if you guys want to change our Constitution, you can do it. So I think that this is something that even goes beyond Democratic policy and Joe Biden. I think that, honestly, they wanted that situation in the Middle East because, look, Trump not only wanted a real plan out of Afghanistan before the events in Duma, he wanted out of Syria. And I'm afraid that, again, when we're talking about this in Washington, there still is a military industrial complex that is very real and is invested in not only occupation, but the type of chaos and conflict that an exit from a nation like that will cause. And we've only seen that, right? There's only been more chaos in that region, more destabilization, and more of a reason, unfortunately, for United States or allied forces to go back in.
Well, you mentioned what's happening in Afghanistan before, and you mentioned about what could have been. And I look what happened today. I mean, Russia launched massive drone and missile strikes on Kiev, the capital city. I'm sure this is in retaliation for the moves Ukraine has made into Russia. Yes, our defense contractors, those stocks are at 52-week highs and going higher. General Dynamics, Lockheed Martin, and I could go on and on. And then on Saturday, you had the Israelis, a preemptive strike, and they're constantly they're really fighting a three-front war right now. You've got the issues in Gaza that they're dealing with. You've got Hezbollah launching rockets at them from Lebanon. And then you've got the constant threat of the Iranians. Now, the Iranians, Jason, have backed off a little bit because of this massive show of force that the Biden administration has delivered to the Middle East in a form of aircraft carriers, planes, F-15s, F-16s. Okay, so yes, you're seeing a lot of firepower going in the Middle East. But as Trump can say, and he should be talking about this as he is on the campaign trail, under his watch, we didn't have all this. I mean, think about this for just a minute. If you're into peace and security as your primary issue, can you really trust Kamala Harris over Trump? I don't think so. So here again, Jason, when we bring it back here to 2024 and we're 70 some odd days from election. By the way, we're less than 2 weeks away from when early voting starts. Trump can play the economic card, which he's leading by 20. He can play the inflation card. Under him, inflation 1.5%. Under Biden, it was 20.5% over a period of 3 years. Yes, it's come down, but it's still prices high. And then he can talk about his international experience as president. So, Jason, I don't know. I think there's a lot of favorable things. Highlighting that debacle in Afghanistan, again, it brings the attention to it. But here again, to go back to your point earlier, how much media attention did that get other than showing Trump and not a peep out of Harris?
And not only that, but when you talk about, look, I think that Trump had some issues. Like, I don't love the deals with Saudi Arabia and what's going on in Yemen. But when we're talking about overall volatility across the world, not just in the Middle East, it's not even comparable, right? And look, he also just got shot in the face less than 2 months ago. Now, you mentioned that you got all-time highs on traditional military industrial complex contractors in the past 52 weeks, right? We talked about this last October, that these things were going up, 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 and up until there was some type of resolution. I've got to believe, like, even if Trump doesn't give me the resolution that I want or as quickly as I want, I know that it has to be better than the other side, because these resolutions aren't even being discussed, right? Like, Joe Biden isn't going to take a call from Vladimir Putin, whereas Trump has openly said he believes he can get the conflict done before he's even sworn in. Yet to be seen, but I like that attitude. Bobby Kennedy has been very traditionally anti-war as well. That is a step in the right direction. My fear is that we are on this, momentum so far. I mean, you mentioned Russia and Kiev. How about the drones coming in from Ukraine into Russia yet again? And this one hitting a building. It almost looked like, and I'm, nowhere near the loss of life. Obviously, the building didn't fall, but like when that plane hit those towers in 9/11, now you've got these drones hitting these towers, much lower explosions. But that's real warfare that's being escalated. I don't want to see that come to the West. I don't want to be engaged in that overseas. So, again, if you want to get people out of their seats, I think that, Bobby Kennedy, as far as an anti-war guy, also takes us in that direction. And Kamala Harris is going to be more of the same. It's basically whatever other world leaders and our alliances want to do and the donor class wants to do, they're going to do. Trump has at least some common sense. He's willing to say no. He's willing to step into the arena and try to make a difference. And I think that's a big reason he better watch his back for a possible second assassination attempt.
Oh, well, there's no doubt that they're out there for sure. And the Iranians would like nothing better than to kill Trump prior to the election. Then they would almost ensure that they're going to get Kamala Harris, which is a much, much friendlier. Think about what Trump did to Iran. I mean, he cut off the oil. He effectively had the country very low international cash reserves. And look what happened. Now it's not that case. And the Biden administration, oh God, I can still remember them trying to, the money that they've given to the Iranians, the green light. And then, of course, you have the Hamas wing of the Democratic Party. We don't know what the hell these people are doing. I mean, it's just insane. All right, we're going to take our final break. But when we come back, we're going to dive into a little bit where this race stands right now, what polling came out over the weekend. We've got a fascinating read into it, and I'll give you this clue. The private polling of Trump and Harris is not as optimistic as the public polling. We'll be back in 90 seconds.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year. It's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
Attention patriotic businesses. Do you want to see your sales skyrocket by selling your products or services to like-minded patriots? Well, if you're an advertiser who embodies the timeless principles of freedom, liberty, and patriotism, look no further than Patriot TV. Our viewers are responsive, economically active patriots who are committed to supporting businesses like yours that align with their values. For more information on advertising on America's new network of proud American businesses, email us at advertise@patriot.tv.
And we're back. Hey, Jason, a quick question for you. Before we dive into the polls, has anyone seen Joe Biden lately? I mean, what's going on? Is he still the president? I mean, I think constitutionally he's still the president. I heard he was in California. Now he's flown back to his East Coast vacation spot. What's going on?
So again, just so bizarre, right? Now we've got to act like it's okay that everybody has now acknowledged that Joe Biden has dementia. You know, I mentioned that speech. I thought they were going to roll him out for 15. He did 45. Did he forget words, where he was? Yes, he did several times. When he was trying to talk about women as an electoral powerhouse, clearly has no idea what's going on for 20 seconds plus. His jaw is locked down. They couldn't wait to usher him out of not only out of the building, out of the state. Okay, that's night one. And then gone. And then we have to imagine that now we've all acknowledged that he has dementia, that there's no important business in the United States of America. Because obviously Kamala Harris, even if you were in imagination land and thought that she was running the country, was too busy being at the DNC, making sure that her pantsuit matched her jacket, or I'm sorry, her shoes. I mean, that's pretty much it, right? Not a lot going on there. They rolled out the heavy hitters, right? They rolled out the Barack star. They rolled out Michelle Obama. I got to say, Barack Obama was playing the greatest hits. He was like a platinum-selling artist on a revival tour that did not disappoint. And you didn't want any remnants of Joe Biden near that. But has he done anything? I mean, was he meeting with anybody? Was he overseas trying to figure out what's going on with the Ukraine and Russia? No. And this brings me to my larger concern. My larger concern is we sat here and we discussed all the volatility, not only in the Middle East, but Russia, Ukraine, and beyond. If we have the wrong event, all right, whether it be an event in this country or something that demands some type of military action or reaction, I believe they will usher Kamala Harris into the presidency. That they will say, thank you, Joe, for the last time. Thank you, Joe. I mean, that was the big, thank you, Joe, for not being here on night 3. Literally chanting, thank you, Joe, as he's nowhere to be seen. He's probably not conscious at that moment because that's about a 10:30 clip on the Eastern timeline. And let's face it, bedtime's about 8 p.m. for Joe. That happens, then the acknowledgement is going for the country, just like for the country, for democracy. Joe had to step down, right? He'll have to step down again, and we need real leadership in that moment. All of a sudden, you legitimize this woman in late September, early October. Lord knows what happens, Mark, but people aren't thinking correctly. There are talking points on both sides that are just totally over the top, right? And not so much divisive, right? Now there's something to come together on. You know, the rhetoric will almost homogenize, and now you've got more of a narrative that this woman can win the presidency. Why? She's already the first woman president, Mark. But call me kooky. Call me kooky, man. I mean, that's a scenario I could see playing out.
It is a scenario that could play out, but I'll take the other side of that trade, and I'll tell you why. If they forced him out, so they can force him not to give up the presidency too. You do know that. But if they did, then she would demonstrate her problems about being president. We already know she doesn't have the characteristics to do it, but then they would be on full display. So imagine there's an international incident and President Harris has to deal with it in October. Or let's say some of these inflation numbers tick back up again. Or let's say that unemployment rate ticks up. Or there's some mass event that takes place overseas. And she's going to have to address the American people. I mean, my God, she doesn't have press conferences. She doesn't speak to reporters. I mean, the basement strategy can backfire if that happened. And I don't think they want her to do it. I mean, I think they are so confident in their ability to keep her away from the presidency. I don't know. I mean, you know what, the one thing that would make me believe they would do that, if they saw her poll numbers tanking, or she did something really stupid, or let's just say she had a debate performance that's only a half as bad as Joe Biden, or even a quarter as bad as Joe Biden, and then something happens with those poll numbers. Could then things change? They could. But it would take, I think, a big event to put her out there. They'd have to get to a point where they would assume she's going to lose. And right now, if you look at the betting markets, it literally is 50-50. It could go either way. But you know what? There's always issues that come up. And you heard the old saying, Jason, things start in California and they head east. The California legislature, folks, I'm not making this up, actually has a proposal that's being debated right now. You think Harris's idea of $25,000 to help first-time homebuyers is a whacked-out idea? In California, they want to make it first-time illegal immigrant homebuyers to provide financial assistance. I'm not making this up, folks. The legislature is so far out left in California, they're actually consider this. But Governor Newsom has put out his minions to say, hey, we don't want to be doing this. No. I'm not certain I'd even sign a bill like this. Why is he saying that, Jason? Well, I'll give you the chance to answer it and then I'll sharpen up. But there's two people keenly watching this election. One of them's name is Gavin Newsom. The other is Gretchen Whitmer. Need I go any further?
Well, I think that Gavin Newsom is much more self-aware and actually better on his feet than most of the politicians on the left. That's just a fact. He knows that he's a liar and a sociopath, so he tries to roll with it. I'm not sure if you've seen this yet, Mark, but he's sitting at the table on this leftist podcast, literally joking about how his party just installed Kamala Harris as the nominee with no democratic process whatsoever. It's an astonishing 1+ minute clip where they're all laughing, having a good time, acknowledging how corrupt the system and the party is, and then they just move on. So look, Gavin Newsom's also had that moment a couple times now with his own policy. Flashback, about 6 months ago when Xi Jinping came to San Francisco? And he got up there in front of everybody and he said, look, a lot of people are going to criticize me. He gets out in front of it and say that you cleaned this city up for this visit from Xi Jinping. And he goes, and in fact, that is true. Just recently, he did another interview where he was asked why there is so much crime and homelessness, etc., in California. He straight up said it's because of the policies that we've enacted. Well, those policies go on from under him. I think that Newsom, although he's a really good liar, and like I said, better on his feet, he realizes there's a certain power in acknowledging the truth, the stuff that's right in front of your face, but then just pacifies it by that acknowledgement and then moving on to we're a forward moving party. We need forward moving thinking. So he tries to put that stuff in the background. And look, as far as, sociopathic, psychopathic politicians, he does a pretty good job at it.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I just don't think he wants to put his name on a bill for housing assistance for illegal immigrants, given that if Harris loses, him and Whitmer are going to be the two leading candidates for 2028. And you know damn good and well that if Trump is elected and passes all the legal challenges and becomes president, the day he becomes president, people are going to start talking about 2028. So, yeah, that's just nature of the beast. Listen, we said we were talking about latest polling. Real Clear Politics still shows Harris with a 1.5 point advantage. The Hill, it's about 3. Most polling nationwide, it's about 2. Although some polls like Trafalgar and Rasmussen have Trump up. There was a lot of discussion over the weekend, Jason, about the hidden Trump voter. He always outperforms his polls. At this point in time in 2020, Joe Biden was up 7 points on him, ended up beating him by 4. At this point in 2016, Hillary Clinton was up 5. He ended up beating her. So Trump tends to perform better than the polls indicate. Maybe it's the hidden Trump voter. Maybe it's the people when pollsters call, they just say, F you, I'm voting for Trump, hang up. And, who knows? But I got to believe the internal polls of both Trump and Harris have come out and said, hey, our polling is not nearly as optimistic as these public polls. And when I see Pennsylvanians by a 70-30% say, were you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And 70% say, no, I'm not. They can talk abortion till they're blue in the face. But I saw some statistics, Jason, only 5% of Pennsylvania voters thought that was an important issue. 50% thought it was economy and inflation. And on that and border security, Trump's really leading by a lot. So, if he wins Pennsylvania and he wins Georgia, he only needs one more swing state, which is why I think this election is as tight as it is.
Well, I know that you've been emphasizing Pennsylvania. When I talk about this with other people, they are also emphasizing Pennsylvania. And look, that northeast block of the United States has been hit extremely hard, not only financially, but also with this migration issue. Pennsylvania has some pretty big cities in there. They've got Pittsburgh. They've got Philadelphia. They have large suburban areas that also are, basically taking the brunt of this immigration. It's not just New York. It's not just New Jersey. It's also Connecticut as well, etc. And in Pennsylvania, I would argue, just like in upstate New York, most of the people that get out in there and vote, they have traditional values. They're conservative anyway, and they're kind of outraged what they've seen the last 4 years go down. So look, I think you're right. I think the driving force and focus should be on Pennsylvania as a state, but you also know that I'm a huge skeptic. I'm not necessarily sure we have free and fair elections. And at the end of the day, if we can't audit this system and we don't have proper exit polling from these, and it's tough to do now that like you said, early voting starts in a couple weeks. It's going to be difficult to audit whatever happens there. And like you said, whatever happens there could be the election.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And you literally could lose Michigan and Wisconsin, but if you take Pennsylvania, and I got to believe 15 out of 17 polls in Pennsylvania, Jason, have shown Trump leading. Whereas in the last 2 elections, 75 out of 80 polling showed him not winning Pennsylvania. Anyhow, thank you for coming on again today. If it's Monday, it's Jason Bermas on Election Edge. Quick note, Tulsi Gabbard endorsed Donald Trump today. We're always happy to have those type of endorsements. Folks, great having you with us today. We'll be back tomorrow. Election Edge, 6 on the East, 3 o'clock out West. See you tomorrow.